What happens when a family, once so close, becomes the source of your deepest pain? Emily Carter, a successful investment analyst on Wall Street, gazes out of her luxury Manhattan apartment, the weight of a life built on ambition, success, and survival on her shoulders. At 42, she's about to marry Jacob, but as she holds her wedding invitation, the ghosts of her past stir. A lifetime of jealousy and rivalry with her sister, Ashley, has left Emily scarred and questioning everything. Can she truly move on from her family's neglect? Or will her upcoming wedding be a reminder of all she's left behind? As Emily prepares for her new chapter, the question lingers: will her family ever be a part of it? In her luxury Manhattan apartment, Emily Carter stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker to life as the sun dipped below the horizon. At 42, she was a respected investment analyst on Wall Street, a woman of success in a high-stakes world. But tonight, as her gaze drifted to the wedding invitation on her desk, an invitation for her own wedding to her fiancé, Jacob, her thoughts wandered back to a place far removed from the world of financial charts and projections. Marriage. It was a word that conjured both joy and a cascade of unresolved emotions, particularly when it came to her family. Among the complex ties that bound Emily's heart was her relationship with her sister, Ashley. From the beginning, their relationship had been marked by competition, jealousy, and an unspoken rivalry. Ashley had always been the chosen one, the child that drew the praise and attention, while Emily, born 10 months later, often felt like an afterthought. Emily remembered her grandmother Martha's words all too well. Ashley was the one they planned for, and you, Emily, were the unexpected gift. Looking back, Emily traced the painful dynamics of her childhood. From the earliest memories, it was clear that Ashley was the golden child. Family photos told the story Ashley, always positioned in the center of the frame, while Emily was relegated to the outer edges. On family vacations, it was always Ashley who went on the trips, while Emily stayed behind, left to be with her grandparents. One summer, when Emily was just 7 years old, she overheard her parents planning a trip to Disneyland. Her heart leapt with excitement, imagining herself walking among the magical castles. But those hopes were dashed when her mother, Sarah, casually told her, "Sorry, Emily, this time we're only taking Ashley. You'll get your turn next time." Emily fought back the tears. "But I want to go too," she cried, her voice trembling. Her father, David, responded sternly, "Emily, just stay quietly at your grandparents'. Ashley needs special consideration." That phrase, special consideration, burned itself into her memory. Why was Ashley always special? Why was Emily always second? And worse still, that next time never came. Emily spent that summer alone, staring at old family photos, her heart aching with the sting of abandonment. As she grew older, the unfairness became impossible to ignore. Around the age of 6 or 7, Emily's loneliness deepened. The emotional neglect was no longer something she could simply overlook. Her anger began to fester, but it was with her grandparents, George and Martha, that she found refuge. They were her haven, unconditionally loving, endlessly patient, and always there to soothe her broken heart. "Emily, you are special," Martha would tell her with a soft smile. "But sometimes that can be a burden. Be strong." Her grandfather, George, shared his passion for mathematics and science, and it became Emily's sanctuary. When he taught her, it was like opening the door to a world where she could thrive, a world where she wasn't second to anyone. One evening, George took Emily up to the rooftop and showed her an old telescope. "This was passed down from my father," he said with nostalgia. "When you look at the stars, you realize how small our problems really are." That night, they observed the stars together, and in the vastness of the universe, Emily felt small but also free. She had always been one to question the world, and in that moment, she realized the infinite possibilities before her. "Knowledge is power, Emily," George often said, his voice carrying wisdom. "It's a treasure no one can take from you." To escape her painful reality, Emily turned to books. She poured herself into solving math problems, striving to prove her worth, to prove that she was special. But in her parents' eyes, she was just the quiet, responsible daughter, the one who did what was asked, but never stood out. "Why can't you be more like Ashley?" her father, David, would ask. "Go outside and make some friends." But for Emily, the outside world was always a hostile place. Her classmates called her weird, making her a target for ridicule. Ashley, with her popularity and charm, never came to her defense. In fact, there were times when Ashley joined in the teasing. The pain of being alone, even with a sister, became an ache that Emily carried deep inside. The invitation to her wedding now lay before her, the words a stark contrast to the memories of a past marked by neglect and longing. Emily stood by the window, the bustling city of Manhattan reflecting the woman she had become, independent, accomplished, and confident. But beneath her success was a woman still grappling with the scars of her past. And yet, as she looked back on her journey, she couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Despite everything, Emily had found love with Jacob, a love that was hers, truly hers, and not a product of comparisons or rivalry. In this new chapter, she knew that she was worthy of happiness, a happiness that, for so long, had felt out of reach. One day during a school break, Emily was reading a book in a corner of the library. Suddenly, her classmates surrounded her. "Look, she's reading alone again," a girl laughed. "Don't you have any friends?" Emily blushed and was at a loss for words. Just then, Ashley passed by. For a moment, Emily thought her sister might help her. However, Ashley looked at Emily coldly and said, "Leave her alone. My sister is a bit special." Emily's classmates burst into laughter. Emily, clutching her book, ran into the bathroom and cried. The pain of being betrayed by her sister hurt her more deeply than the words of her classmates. During high school, the relationship between Emily and Ashley became even more complex. Emily excelled academically, while Ashley was sociable and popular. Every time Emily answered correctly in class, her classmates sighed and muttered, "There she goes again." While she was proud of her talent, Emily was tormented by loneliness. She immersed herself in libraries and labs, finding her worth through knowledge absorption. One day during a chemistry experiment, Emily made a remarkable discovery. Her results challenged textbook theories. Excited, she reported to her teacher, who praised her talent. But the joy was short-lived. Ashley suddenly appeared and said, "Are you trying to draw attention with your weird experiments again? I'll tell Mom and Dad." Emily was speechless. Why couldn't her sister be happy for her success? Why was she always trying to crush her? That evening, her parents scolded Emily harshly. "Don't cause trouble for the teacher with unnecessary actions," her father scolded. "Just sit quietly in class," her mother added. Emily cried in her room, pondering why her talent was seen as a sin. That night, she resolved to find a place where her talents would be recognized and to achieve success so undeniable that everyone would have to acknowledge her value. One day, Emily formed a group with girls she met in art class. They understood and accepted her intellectual side. For the first time, Emily felt the warmth of friendship. They gathered at a cafe after school, passionately discussing art, science, philosophy. Emily freely expressed her opinions on every topic, impressing her friends with her knowledge and insight. "Emily, you're really interesting," her friend Jessica said. "I wonder why I didn't get to know you sooner." Emily felt she had finally found a place where she belonged. But this happiness was short-lived. Ashley wanted to join the group. She couldn't bear Emily becoming close to anyone else. One afternoon, Ashley approached Emily's group. "Hey, let me join too," she said sweetly. Emily's friends were hesitant, knowing how Ashley had treated Emily. "Sorry, Ashley," Jessica said kindly, "but this group is—" Ashley's expression turned fierce. "Why won't you let me join?" Ashley's voice of anger echoed in the hallway. "You're the worst sister, mates." That night, Ashley complained to their parents, crying that Emily was being mean and wouldn't let her join the friend group. Their parents sided with Ashley. "Emily, why can't you be more compassionate?" Her mother Sarah's reproachful words stung. "Ashley is your sister. Try to get along better." Emily tried to stand by her decision, but it wasn't easy. There were nights when she cried into her pillow. Why did she have to suffer like this? Why couldn't her parents understand her feelings? However, this experience made her stronger. Emily learned that her value lay not in others' judgments, but within herself. She dedicated herself even more to her studies, setting her sights on a future goal, to succeed on Wall Street. That was her form of revenge and self-affirmation. In her final year of high school, Emily won a national mathematics contest. Her name became known throughout the school and was even featured in the local newspaper. For the first time, Emily tasted the joy of having her talent recognized. However, this joy was fleeting, as new problems arose at home. Ashley was jealous of Emily's success, fearing that their parents' attention would shift to Emily. One day, Ashley told their parents a lie about Emily. She accused Emily of having a secret boyfriend and using drugs. The moment David confronted her, his voice was trembling with rage. "Is it true?" he asked, his anger palpable. "I can't believe you would do such a thing." Emily, feeling the weight of the accusation, tried to explain herself. "No, Dad, it's not true. Please, let me explain." But he wouldn't listen, his mind already made up. Sarah stood by silently, offering no support, her face impassive. Tears welled in Emily's eyes as she begged. "Why won't you believe me? I've always been honest." "You only believe Ashley's words." But their attitude was unwavering. In their eyes, Ashley was always right, and Emily was the problem child. Frustration and anger bubbled up inside Emily. She couldn't keep quiet anymore. "Why would you lie like that?" she shouted at Ashley. "What have I ever done to you?" Then, without warning, Ashley shoved Emily hard. Emily lost her balance, and her head slammed into a shelf behind her, causing blood to pour from her nose. The pain from the blow was sharp, but the betrayal from her family cut deeper. As Emily clutched her nose, tears mingled with blood. Her heart shattered. Her parents took her to the hospital, but still, they defended Ashley. "It was an accident," David said, his voice trying to downplay the incident. Ashley didn't mean it. In the hospital waiting room, Emily sat in silence, the pain in her head and heart merging into a suffocating weight. Tears slipped down her cheeks as she quietly wept. A nurse, noticing her distress, approached with a gentle voice. "Are you okay? What happened?" Emily hesitated, unsure if she could open up. She had never spoken to anyone about her family's issues before, but at that moment, the weight of everything became unbearable. Emily took a deep breath and, for the first time, shared her story. The nurse listened intently, nodding occasionally. When Emily finished, the nurse spoke softly. "I'm worried about your safety. Would you like me to contact Child Protective Services?" Emily's heart pounded. She had never considered it, but she felt that this might be the only way to change the situation. Slowly, she nodded. The involvement of CPS sent shockwaves through the family. Her parents were furious and blamed Emily for everything. "Why did you do that?" Sarah's scream echoed through the hospital corridors. "How could you let outsiders know about our family problems? You've betrayed us!" David glared at Emily, his eyes cold. "You're a disgrace to this family. Don't ever show your face here again." Emily stood there, listening to their words with tears streaming down her face. Her heart felt like it was being torn apart, but beneath the pain, there was a strange sense of freedom, a sense that she was no longer bound by their suffocating control. After that incident, Emily moved in with her grandparents. Her parents didn't put up much resistance, almost seeming relieved that she was leaving. At her grandparents' home, Emily felt what it was like to be loved unconditionally. Every morning, she woke up to the smell of her grandmother's breakfast. In the evenings, she and her grandfather would sit together, gazing at the stars while discussing life's deeper questions. "Life isn't easy, Emily," her grandfather would say, his voice full of wisdom. "But every difficulty you face makes you stronger. Never forget, You have infinite potential. After graduating high school, Emily received a full scholarship to Columbia University. The moment she set foot on campus, a wave of emotion flooded her. This was her fresh start. No one knew her past. No one knew her as Ashley's sister. Here, she was Emily, just Emily. University life was full of surprises. Emily quickly became known for her intelligence and diligence. She was respected by professors and admired by her peers. Her unique personality, once dismissed by her family, was finally recognized and valued. In economics classes, Emily shone brightly. Her sharp analytical skills and innovative thinking left professors in awe. She was no longer the quiet, overlooked girl from a broken home. She was someone who commanded attention, someone whose potential could no longer be ignored. One day, a renowned professor stopped her. "Emily, your latest report was excellent," he smiled. "You have great potential. Would you be interested in working on Wall Street?" Emily's eyes lit up. This was the opportunity she had been waiting for. However, occasionally when she remembered her family, she felt a painful tightening in her chest. Her contact with her parents was rare, mostly just a birthday card sent her way. She heard nothing from Ashley. Sometimes Emily would look through her family albums, pictures of her smiling parents and Ashley, with her standing on the edge. Each time she saw those photos, her heart filled with complex emotions. In her sophomore year in college, Emily met Jacob in the library. He was a law student who understood her intellect and introverted nature. They clicked and eventually became a couple. "You're an incredible person, Emily." Jacob's words resonated with her. "I can't believe your family misses that." Being with Jacob gave her a new perspective. She learned the joy of being loved and reevaluated her own worth. It also made her deeply contemplate her relationship with her family. "Should I forgive them?" Emily asked Jacob one night. He chose his words carefully. "That's for you to decide. But I've heard that forgiving isn't for the other person. It's for lifting the weight off your own heart." Emily pondered his words for a long time. Gradually, something inside her began to change. After graduating, Emily joined a major investment bank on Wall Street. Her analytical skills and insights were highly valued, and she quickly climbed the ranks. By her mid-30s, she was a noted figure in the industry. One day, Emily was assigned a major project that could define her career. She worked through many sleepless nights to prepare the best presentation possible. On the day of the presentation, the conference room was packed with executives. Despite her nerves, Emily began confidently. Her analysis was sharp, her proposals innovative. After she finished, the room fell silent. Then the CEO stood and started to clap. The other executives followed. "Great job, Ms. Carter," the CEO said with a broad smile. "Thanks to you, our company will make significant progress." At that moment, Emily felt her talents were fully recognized. Tears welled up in her eyes. It was the moment all her hard work paid off. Meanwhile, Jacob had become a successful lawyer working on human rights issues. Despite their busy lives, they supported each other and shared a strong bond. After 8 years together, Jacob proposed. He knelt in front of her favorite painting at the museum Emily loved. "Emily, I want to share my life with you." His voice trembled. "Will you marry me?" Emily nodded through tears. "Yes, gladly." That night, as they discussed their future, an inevitable topic came up: whether to invite her family to the wedding. Emily called her grandparents to share the news. Their voices of joy brought tears to her eyes. "Your happiness means everything, Emily," her grandmother's warm voice said. "You deserve this." But reaching out to her parents and Ashley was not easy. Years of resentment slowed her hand as she tried to dial their numbers. Emily started the call several times but stopped. Memories of the past and current emotions clashed within her. Ultimately, Emily decided to send a brief message. Emily wrote and rewrote it several times, finally settling on a simple text. "Dad, Mom, and Ashley, I am engaged to a man named Jacob. Our wedding is on the 15th next month. You are welcome to attend if you'd like." After pressing send, Emily's heart pounded. She spent the next few days uneasy, unable to focus at work or sleep at night. Jacob supported her gently. "It's okay, Emily. Whatever their response, I'm here with you." As expected, her parents' reply was lukewarm. "Congratulations. Your father should walk you down the aisle," her mother's message read. It was a demand, not a blessing. Ashley's response was even worse. "Are you trying to shame me by getting married before your older sister? You always think only of yourself." Reading these messages, Emily felt a painful tightness in her chest. Even after all these years, nothing had changed with her family. It was sad to realize that she had no family to genuinely rejoice in her success and happiness. Emily sought Jacob's help. "Should I invite them? But if they come, they will surely ruin the ceremony." Jacob took her hand. "I support whatever decision you make, but I want you to choose without regrets. This is our day, but it might also be a chance to reconcile with your family." Emily thought deeply for a long time. She wavered between the pain of the past and a slight hope for reconciliation. Inside her, a dialogue started between the memories of her childhood and her current self. 2 weeks before the wedding, Emily made her final decision. She would invite her parents and Ashley, but they would not have major roles. "Dad, I've asked Grandpa to walk me down the aisle," Emily told her father over the phone. After a moment of silence, her father's angry voice came through. "What a selfish daughter we raised." Emily, controlling her trembling voice, responded, "Yes, you raised me, but it was my grandparents who loved me. On the most important day of my life, I want someone by my side who truly supports me." It seemed her father lost his words for a moment, but he quickly regained his anger. "You are no longer our daughter." After the call ended, Emily cried for a long time, but these were not only tears of sadness. They were also tears of liberation. Years of suppressed emotions were finally being released. Jacob simply held Emily without a word. No words were necessary. His presence alone comforted her. Preparations for the wedding progressed steadily. Emily, amidst her busy schedule, ran around selecting dresses and arranging flower arrangements, temporarily forgetting her family issues. However, a week before the wedding, another shock awaited her. It was a call from her father. "Emily, I need to talk to you." His voice was tense. "About your wedding day. I can't make it anymore." Emily's heart nearly stopped. "What do you mean?" "Ashley has been promoted to VP of a major company. The celebration is on the same day as your wedding." His words faded away. Memories from Emily's childhood came flooding back vividly. Days when Ashley was always the priority, the pain of being secondary, and now even on the most important day of her life, they chose her sister. "I understand," Emily responded coldly. "Enjoy yourselves." After hanging up, Emily collapsed to the floor. Jacob rushed over and held her. "It's okay, Emily. I'm here with you." His voice helped her regain some strength. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She stood by the window looking out over nighttime Manhattan. The city lights seemed to reflect her complex emotions. Memories kept coming back. The day she wasn't taken to Disneyland, the parents who didn't celebrate her school successes, the days she was punished for Ashley's lies, and the moment she was coldly kicked out after CPS's intervention. Emily took a deep breath. Yes, that's enough. She no longer needed her parents' or Ashley's approval. She had her own life. She had Jacob, understanding friends and grandparents who loved her unconditionally. The next morning, Emily woke up with a determined expression. "Jacob, we will go ahead with our wedding as planned, even if my parents and Ashley aren't there. We have our true family." Jacob smiled gently. "Yes, we have each other, and we have your grandparents who love you and our friends." On her wedding day, Emily walked toward the altar on the arm of her beloved grandfather, George. She wore a pure white dress with delicate flowers woven into her hair, and the soft glow of the venue was filled with the warmth of their closest friends. Though her parents and Ashley were conspicuously absent, Emily felt Jacob's loving gaze enveloping her, steady and reassuring. "We are creating a new family," she whispered to herself. the weight of the past slowly slipping away. A family based on understanding, on love. As they exchanged vows, Emily looked deep into Jacob's eyes and saw nothing but unconditional love reflected back at her. I vow to love, respect, and cherish Emily Carter, in sickness and in health, for better or for worse. Jacob's voice trembled with emotion as he spoke the words. Emily repeated them, her heart swelling with joy. At that moment, standing hand in hand with Jacob, she felt truly liberated. At the reception, Emily danced, her smile radiant, surrounded by her dearest friends. Her grandparents watched her proudly from a distance, and Jacob's parents welcomed her with open arms, treating her as if she were their own daughter. Yet, despite the warmth and joy of the day, the absence of her parents and Ashley lingered in Emily's heart, a subtle ache she couldn't ignore. During a break from dancing, Emily stood by the window, gazing out at the vibrant lights of the city below. The hum of the celebration felt distant as her mind wandered. Unexpectedly, she heard a familiar voice behind her. Emily. She turned to find Ashley standing there. Ashley, dressed in a glamorous gown, but her eyes were tired, her face shadowed by exhaustion. Ashley? Why are you here? Emily asked, confusion clouding her thoughts. Ashley hesitated, the words coming slowly. I left my promotion celebration early, she said, her voice quieter now. I felt like I needed to be here, at your wedding. Emily's emotions clashed in a whirlwind: anger, sadness, and a small glimmer of hope. I truly regret what I've done, Ashley continued, her voice trembling with sincerity. I've always been jealous of your strength, your intelligence, and the love you received. I didn't know how to handle it. Emily listened in silence, her heart heavy with the weight of years of unresolved tension. It may be hard to repair our relationship, Ashley said softly, but if you can forgive me, I'd like to start over. Emily took a deep breath. The years of pent-up emotions came rushing forward. Ashley, I can't forgive you easily, she replied quietly, the words soft but firm. But I'm glad you came. Maybe we can start to rebuild something, slowly. Tears glistened in Ashley's eyes. Hesitantly, she reached out her hand to Emily. After a long pause, Emily took it. They stood there together, side by side, gazing out at the Manhattan skyline, a silent promise hanging between them. 2 months after the wedding, Emily received a letter from her parents. Emily, we've made a huge mistake. We deeply regret not attending your wedding. We don't know if you can forgive us, but we'd like to meet and talk. Emily stared at the letter, the words stirring a storm of emotions inside her. The question was overwhelming: should she forgive them, or should she continue to keep her distance? She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she turned to Jacob. What do you think? She asked, her voice full of uncertainty. Jacob smiled gently, his hand resting on hers. Maybe it's okay to wait until you feel more settled. There's no rush. Take your time. Emily nodded, grateful for his support. For the first time in her life, she realized that she didn't need to rush into any decision. She could take her time and honestly face her feelings. A new life, a new family, and the possibility of reconciliation, the options before Emily seemed infinite. She took a deep breath, ready to step forward into the future. She decided to start therapy, a path to healing from the traumas of her past and building healthier relationships in the future. I have a loving husband, understanding friends, and grandparents who love me unconditionally, Emily reminded herself. I am not alone. I can get through this. This was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with the promise of growth and healing. As she looked out the window at the shimmering lights of Manhattan, a sense of calm washed over Emily. The night was alive with possibilities, and though challenges still lay ahead, she was no longer afraid. She had the strength to face them. Jacob came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her. What are you thinking about? Emily smiled, feeling at peace for the first time in a long while. About our future, and reconciling with the past. Let's face it together. Jacob's voice was warm and gentle. We'll overcome it, Emily. Together. In his arms, Emily felt a sense of security and belonging. She had built her life through her own choices, and now she was ready to move forward with her new family. This was not the end. It was a new beginning. A new chapter in Emily's life was about to unfold. What does it mean to truly forgive, and is it worth the emotional toll? Emily's heart wrestled with this question as she stood at the threshold of a potential reconciliation. Her parents' apology felt heavy, laden with years of unspoken guilt and regret. Yet, even as they reached out, the scars of the past lingered. Emily had spent so many years living in the shadow of her sister's jealousy, her parents' favoritism, and her own sense of being second-rate. Even after all the success, the recognition, and the love she'd found with Jacob, a part of her still felt like that lonely girl, yearning for acceptance. But as Emily reflected on her journey, she realized that her true family was already in place. Jacob, her friends, her grandparents, they had shown her the kind of love that was unconditional, supportive, and real. She had no need for validation from the people who had always dismissed her worth. In that moment, she knew she had the power to decide what was best for her. Maybe reconciliation was possible, but it would be on her terms. She didn't need to rush. Healing took time, and Emily had finally learned that she was worthy of happiness, no matter the past. What would you do in Emily's shoes? How would you approach a relationship that's left you with so much hurt? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.
Don't bother coming to the wedding. Uneducated people are not welcome. My sister spat out those words over the phone as if she were ridiculing me. Uneducated people? Aren't we sisters? I replied, feeling hurt. I don't acknowledge you as my sister. You're just a failure, she shot back. It wasn't just my sister who looked down on me. My parents and even my sister's fiancé had done the same. I couldn't take it anymore. It was time to cut ties with these people. My name is Heather. I turned 31 not too long ago, but I'm still unmarried. I've been a bit reckless since middle school and, although I enrolled in high school, I dropped out soon after enrolling. After that, I lived with my parents while working part-time jobs and saved up some money. I invested that money and have been running a small business for a few years now. Although it is a small company, I have been living on my own near the office and leading a fulfilling life. All of my employees are good people and do not look down on me, despite knowing my educational background. They even praise me for being a hard worker and for building my dream company with an excellent work environment. However, I have one worry, which is my family. I have a younger sister who is 3 years my junior. Her name is Zaylee. She is the complete opposite of me. Although she is not exceptionally smart, she has a quick wit and graduated from a famous private university. She is good at everything and has many friends, the type of person that is often referred to as outgoing. Zaylee seems to dislike the fact that she has a sister like me. Her attitude towards me has been cold since we were young. Even when we used to live together with our parents, she would roll her eyes at me whenever we passed by each other. "Why does a loser like you have to be my sister?" she often said. "Loser? I work hard and save money, you know," I defended myself. "Really? All you do is stay cooped up in your room all day except for occasional outings," she sneered. "I haven't gone out recently. I'm preparing for my startup," I explained. On hearing this, Zaylee scoffed and pretended to laugh. "A startup? You, a worthless freeloader? Give me a break." "I'm serious," I said. "Look, if you have time to say stupid things like that, why don't you just leave? You're such a nuisance," she uttered. From then on, I endured daily verbal abuse from my sister. I was used to our bickering, but being insulted every time we saw each other was too much to bear. Our parents, of course, always took Zaylee's side. They thought I was a failure of a freeloader. Even when Zaylee berated me with harsh words, they never stopped her. They would just watch and chuckle. Tired of the situation, I decided to move out. "Mom, Dad, I've decided to live on my own," I announced. "So what? Do whatever you want. We don't care where you go, my mother responded coldly. That's right, we have Zaylee, and that's enough for us, my father added. Oh, I see. I understand, I replied. One day, out of the blue, I received a phone call from my family's house, from whom I hadn't heard in ages. The person on the other end of the line was my mother, who began speaking in a businesslike tone as though she were relaying information. Your younger sister Zaylee is getting married. They'll be signing the papers this coming Sunday. Oh, really? Congratulations to her, I replied, trying to be polite. Tell Zaylee, not me, and you should give her a proper wedding gift, you know, my mother said. Huh? But I don't even know where Zaylee lives now, I puzzled. You have her contact information, don't you? Honestly, you're such a failure, even at your age, she snapped, before hanging up abruptly, leaving a dial tone in my ear. I grew increasingly frustrated. Why did I have to put up with this? If my mother wanted me to give a gift, couldn't she at least give me my sister's address? I couldn't help but complain in my mind, but I couldn't just leave things as they were. It was my sister, after all. If I ignored the situation, things would only get worse. So reluctantly, I made the call to Zaylee. After a few rings, Zaylee answered with an unfriendly tone. What do you want? She demanded. Suppressing my frustration, I got straight to the point. I heard from Mom that you're getting married. So what? It's none of your business, you unemployed loser, she snapped. Mom told me to send you a congratulatory gift. Is there anything you want? I asked. As if a deadbeat like you could afford to buy anything for me, she continued to taunt. If I don't send anything, Mom will nag me about it. Can you at least give me your new address? I tried to keep the conversation civil despite my sister's usual attitude, but her next words left me speechless. People like you with low education don't belong in our circle. Don't bother coming to the wedding. What do you mean, people like me? We're sisters, you know, I insisted. I don't recognize you as my sister, you failure. Besides, I already told my husband that you're just a defective product related to us by blood. Hold on a second. You could at least choose your words carefully, I said, shocked. Zaylee showed no remorse and acted as if she were in the right, her confidence unshakable. I wanted to hang up the phone right then and there, but if I did that, it would be playing right into her hands. Besides, if I didn't send a gift to celebrate the occasion, I could already hear my parents complaining, what an ungrateful child, or how could she do this to her own sister? I wouldn't hear the end of it. Undaunted, I spoke to my sister again. Fine, I won't attend the wedding. Is that what you want? As if I care. You coming would just ruin the whole thing. Just give me your address. I won't bother you again after that, I uttered. You're so annoying. You're not even part of this family, so stop trying to act like it. Can we be done now? I am busy preparing for the wedding. Bye, the sister barked and hung up the phone. With a heavy sigh, I sat down where I was. Who did she think she was? I didn't even want to send her a gift in the first place. Oh, it's all so stupid. If she's going to act like that, then I won't contact her anymore. I gave up on getting my sister a wedding gift and decided to cut off all contact. Since then, a month later, something amazing happened. My sister had gotten a job at the company I run. Since all personnel matters were handled by the Human Resources Department, I didn't find out until after my sister had been hired. Looking at my sister's photo attached to her resume, I felt indescribable emotions. No way. Zaylee decided to come work at my company of all places. I heard that she had decided to change jobs to our company because she wanted to work for a short time after getting married. I decided to ask an employee who had been in charge of the interview. How was Zaylee during the interview? I inquired. Oh, she was a very pleasant person to be around. Her resume is also very solid, the employee replied. I see. She just got married and she wants to balance housework and work. It's amazing for someone so young, the employee continued. Yeah, you're right, I said. It's true that my sister has a good educational background and is friendly. Maybe she's someone that the company wants as a valuable employee. However, as someone who knows her true nature, I couldn't be completely happy about it. I couldn't simply say that we weren't hiring her because she's an evil woman after we've already hired her. She probably doesn't even know that the president of the company where she got a job is me. I decided not to reveal my identity and to watch her for a while. Even though I'm the president, I mainly interact with regular employees, so I will probably not have much interaction with my sister, who is working for a short time. If I don't approach her, she probably won't even notice my existence. I had mixed feelings, but as long as she does her job properly, I won't have any complaints. 1 month had passed since then, and to my surprise, my sister had become a troublesome presence. One day a staff member came to me looking very troubled. "Excuse me, President, can I talk to you for a moment?" he asked. "What's the matter?" I inquired. "It's about Zaylee, the new employee who joined us recently," he continued. "What about her?" "Well, there's a rumor that she's having an affair with a married employee named Liam," the employee uttered. "What?" I asked, shocked. After listening to the details, it turned out that Zaylee was indeed in a relationship with Liam, and they were often seen walking arm in arm after work, causing problems for the overall business. Ellis, the staff member who had told me about this, was like a manager in charge of the office and was also my right-hand woman and a reliable presence. I couldn't just leave her in such a difficult situation. As the president, I had to take action. I gently spoke to her as she looked troubled and bowed her head. "I'm sorry for troubling you. I'll take care of this matter," I said. "But as president, you're also busy," Ellis uttered. "Actually, Zaylee is my younger sister," I continued. "Huh? The president's sister?" She widened her eyes in surprise, which was understandable. "I'm sorry for not telling you earlier. To be honest, my sister and I don't get along well. She probably hasn't realized yet that she had transferred to her own sister's company," I explained. "I had no idea. Anyway, leave this matter to me. I'll deal with it as soon as possible." Ellis looked anxious. I smiled at her and she bowed before leaving my office. I sighed deeply and sat back in my chair. Now what should I do? First things first, I had to catch Zaylee cheating. I decided to hire a private investigator and have them investigate my sister's affairs. To my surprise, the investigator found out that my sister had not only been cheating, but also embezzling the company's funds. "No way, my sister used the company's money like this?" I thought out loud. According to the investigator's report, my sister and her lover were living extravagantly every day, and all the money they spent came from the company's expenses. At that moment, the anger that I had been suppressing towards my sister erupted. This was unacceptable, cheating and lowering the company's morale, and even embezzling its funds. I couldn't let her get away with this. I reported the evidence, including the photos and the embezzlement, to the personnel department and ordered them to dismiss my sister and her lover on the spot. Several days later, the president of our business partner came to our office to greet us. We were discussing future business plans when we heard a knock on the door. Normally, I ask my staff not to disturb me when I'm in a meeting, so the fact that someone was knocking meant that there was an urgent issue. I excused myself to the president and opened the door to find my right-hand woman Ellis standing there. "Ellis, what's wrong?" I asked. Well, Zaylee, the person we fired the other day, came to our office and yelled at us saying that she couldn't accept being let go. When she realized the president was her sister, she started making a fuss about it. She even brought her husband with her," Ellis explained. "What a mess," I said. Just as we were talking, we heard Zaylee's voice. "There you are," she exclaimed. We turned to see her approaching us with an angry look on her face, followed by her husband. She seemed confident with her husband by her side and was being quite aggressive. "What do you mean by firing me, even though you're my older sister?" Zaylee demanded. "What do you mean? Didn't the employees explain it to you?" I responded. "I don't know anything about it. Are you crazy to fire your own sister?" she wailed. Then even her husband started showering me with abuse. Does this man not know the reason why his wife was fired? I was amazed, but I asked him, "Excuse me, you're Zaylee's husband, right?" "So what?" he retorted. "Do you understand why your wife was fired?" I asked. "Of course, she just used a little company expense, that's all, right?" "And then?" I continued. "What? That's it, isn't it?" he asked in surprise. "Looks like you still don't know," I uttered. It seemed that things were getting worse and my sister's expression stiffened. She seemed to be pleading with her eyes not to say anything more, but that's not something I cared about. He probably only knows a small part of the whole story. "Just so you know, your wife was cheating on you with one of our male employees," I said. "What, cheating?" he exclaimed. And to make it worse, the guy she was seeing is also married. They were using company funds for their dates. Don't you think they deserve to get fired? What are you talking about? Zaylee wouldn't do that, he tried to object. Believe what you want. I still have a meeting with a business partner, so if you'll excuse me, I finished. As I tried to leave for the president's office, he yelled after me with a loud voice. He must really not want to face the reality of the situation. He continued to hurl insults at me, one after another. This scrappy company isn't right for Zaylee anyway, and your business partners aren't any better. Your company is just a joke run by a high school dropout and a bunch of unemployed losers. I shrugged my shoulders, realizing that arguing with him was pointless. Just as I was thinking that, the president of one of our clients came to the president's office and greeted my sister's husband with, "Hey." Suddenly his expression turned pale and he muttered, "President," in a trembling voice. It turned out that the company we were doing business with was the one my sister's husband worked for. He seemed to hold a decent position in the company and was familiar with the president. He quickly started to explain himself, his voice shaking. "What are you doing here, Mr. President?" "Why do you ask? We've just started a new business relationship. You know, she has become quite famous as a self-made young CEO who climbed up the ranks from being a high school dropout," President said. "Well, I've heard that our company isn't very good in your opinion, so if you want to quit, we'll accept it any time," he continued. "Please, I beg of you not to say that." My sister's husband started to bow down to the president. As I watched, my younger sister began to yell at me. "Hey, what the hell? My husband is in a terrible situation and now my affair has been exposed," Zaylee raged. "So what? It's your own fault, isn't it?" I replied. "What? Are you talking to your little sister like that?" She wouldn't stop. "Little sister?" I asked. "You're my older sister. How could you fire your own flesh and blood? We're family, so be a little more forgiving," she continued. "Younger sister? Family?" I was incredibly disgusted by her high-minded words and lack of remorse for the insults she hurled at me. "What are you talking about? I don't have a little sister or a family," I continued. "Huh? You're my older sister, aren't you?" Zaylee questioned. "I don't have a little sister. You're just a fake little sister who once had the nerve to speak to me without acknowledging me as your older sister." "That's fine," I replied. "Wait a minute, stop with the weird jokes. I'm really in trouble here." Even at this point, there was no apology for the verbal abuse she had directed at me in the past. I was disgusted by my sister's self-centeredness. "I told you, I don't have a little sister. You're a former employee of our company who got fired for embezzlement and cheating on your husband. You're just a worthless human being. Do you understand?" I said angrily. "You shouldn't say things like that," the sister said. "You've been making fun of me all this time. Now it's my turn to speak up. I don't consider you my little sister. You're just a complete stranger to me. Just suffer and go to hell, you piece of crap. I'm done." With that, my sister collapsed in a heap, weeping uncontrollably. It goes without saying what happened afterwards. Since my sister's husband made a comment about their company not being worth much, it caused the president's disapproval and got him transferred to a less important department. To make matters worse, rumors spread throughout the company that my sister had committed adultery and embezzlement at her new job. Her husband, who had lost his position, is now apparently skipping work frequently. As for my sister, it seems that since the fact of her infidelity was exposed, her husband demanded a divorce. She is now facing demands for compensation from both her husband and the wife of her lover. Because of the double claims, she's been pushed into debt hell. As a result, she's been abandoned by our parents, has no one to rely on, and has even started taking dangerous jobs. It's highly unlikely that she'll be able to lead a decent life in the future. It's truly hopeless. Although it's her own fault, I feel ashamed as her older sister. On the other hand, I am leading a busy but fulfilling life. My business is growing with more clients, and I hope to make it even bigger in the future. I may not have a family, but I am living a satisfying life. I am proud of my rewarding life. "I'm staying over tonight. Accommodate us," mother-in-law said. "Excuse me," I said. "Come on. I told you before I'm watching a play nearby tonight. And since it ends late in the evening, I said we'd all be staying here during my son's absence." The mother-in-law arrived unannounced with 7 friends, having not been informed, and having plans of my own. I tried to back out and said I was leaving, but she insisted, but you'll be back soon, right? We'll just drop our stuff and head out for a while. Can you prepare dinner and sleeping arrangements for us? She seemed to disregard my situation and proceeded as if everything was settled. What's more, I recognized the necklace shimmering around her neck. I had endured the mother-in-law's brazen behavior without confrontation for so long, but I finally reached my limit. I can't. I have a trip planned starting now. What a trip? Who are you going with? She asked. The usually non-confrontational me responded with a no, surprising her. Having had enough of her excessive harassment, I finally drew the line. Please give me back that necklace, I uttered. It was time for the mother-in-law to face consequences for her actions. My name is Miranda Williams, a 31-year-old housewife. After getting married, I used my administrative experience to work as a computer class instructor. My husband Aiden serves as the president of a subsidiary that his father owned, and he seems busy every day. Though he sometimes looks deep in thought, I'm relieved to see him relaxed, especially when we go on our favorite movie dates. I feel lighter when I'm with you, he'd say. I was glad if I could ease any of his burdens. I wished I could offer advice or suggestions, but I struggled to express my opinions. Ever since I was young, I preferred listening to others than speaking about myself. My older brother, who is 4 years older, always looked out for me. I used to dislike that about myself, but thanks to Aiden's reassurance, I've gained some confidence. Aiden has an older brother who serves as the vice president in their father's company. His wife Ingrid is close in age to me and we get along well. She's a career-driven woman, both reliable and kind. I admire how she stands her ground and expresses her opinions, yet she is also understanding and adaptable. Seeing her confront the mother-in-law was truly impressive. However, since they live far away, I regret not being able to see them often. On the other hand, the mother-in-law behaves with the air of a company president's mother. Always confident, yet her stubbornness and arrogance are evident. Miranda, you're the wife of Aiden, the president. You should quit being a computer instructor and fully support your husband, she'd reprimand, overwhelming me with her pressure. Aiden would back me up then, but she'd remain displeased. I sometimes felt relieved we lived apart. I hoped for a peaceful life with Aiden, and eventually to be blessed with children. But suddenly Aiden's father passed away from a heart attack. The news was so unexpected it was hard for everyone to accept. Yet Aiden and his brother had to think about the company's future. Aiden decided to stay in New York for a while. I returned home and waited for Aiden's call. With the added responsibilities on the two of them, I was worried. After discussions with his brother, it was decided Aiden would transfer to the New York headquarters. His brother became the president, and Aiden was appointed vice president. We searched for a house in New York and settled on a pre-built single-family home. Although it was a bit far from the station, it was in a less urban area, providing a sense of security. The house had good sunlight, promising a comfortable life. With Aiden having to work late due to the handover tasks for a while, I made sure to create a comfortable environment at home so he could rest properly and prepared lunches considering nutritional balance. I wanted to do everything I could to support him, and just like that, a month flew by. I'm home. I'm hungry, Aiden said as he walked into the house. Thanks for working so late. I'll get dinner ready, I said. Thanks, he replied. Hey Miranda, my mom said she wants to come over this weekend. Is that okay? I had been concerned that she might be feeling down since my father-in-law passed away, so this was a relief to hear. Of course, we still have some areas to tidy up, but she's more than welcome. Thanks, I'll let her know. Oh, maybe I should invite my brother and his wife too, Aiden said. Yeah, that sounds good, I replied. As inappropriate as it may sound, moving here made it easier for me to frequently meet Ingrid, my sister-in-law, which was a pleasant surprise. That weekend, we all gathered to catch up on the current situation and share memories of my father-in-law. It's really sad that Dad's gone. But I felt I shouldn't be down forever, so I started taking up a hobby. Seeing my mother-in-law's cheerful face brought relief. She always carried herself with elegance, always wearing beautiful dresses and lovely accessories. Today she looked stylish with a pale purple scarf that stood out. She seemed to have lost a little weight, but her firmness in advising Aiden and his brother on company matters hasn't changed. However, since my father-in-law's passing, I felt that her strict remarks towards me increased. "Miranda, we're running low on drinks. Could you go buy some?" she asked. "Charlie, I can go get them," Aiden replied. "Oh, can you? That would be helpful then." She seemed to be more commanding towards me than she was with Ingrid. I thought she might be struggling with the loss of her husband, so I decided to observe and let her comments slide for a while. After dinner, Aiden drove everyone home, and the night came to an end. Since then, for some reason, my mother-in-law began visiting our home frequently. She started criticizing my housework and complaining about Ingrid. Moreover, she began going through our fridge without permission, which left me stunned. "Miranda, Aiden's so busy right now. You should pay more attention to the meals you prepare for him. What if he collapses too?" "Yes, I'll be more careful," I answered. "Also, there's still trash here. Can't you clean up perfectly?" "I'm sorry," I uttered. It continued like this. It felt as though she was picking on me just to pass the time. But when Ingrid would visit, she'd quickly leave, saying she had other things to do. She said it wasn't because she disliked me, but I felt otherwise. Perhaps she found it easier to assert herself over me, who rarely countered, than over Ingrid, who always spoke her mind. I thought about finding a job to spend less time at home, but even after finding one, the harassment from my mother-in-law intensified. "Miranda, we ran out of barbecue sauce at our place, so get some while you're out. Oh, I brought a container with me, so let me take some leftovers," she said. Her audacity sometimes left me dumbfounded. She could just as easily buy premium ingredients from an upscale store. Then an incident occurred. A necklace I cherished disappeared. It was a keepsake from my mother, which I had kept safely on a shelf in my room. The only person I could think of was my mother-in-law, who frequently visited. Though I didn't want to suspect her, she often looked around our home and probably knew where most things were. Despite searching everywhere, it remained missing, so I decided to ask her about it. That's when she responded with a fierce yell. "You probably lost it yourself. How dare you suspect me? What kind of person are you?" "I'm sorry, I searched everywhere I could think of, but I couldn't find it. It's a keepsake from my mother, and it means a lot to me." More than the anger I felt towards being accused, I was devastated about losing my mother's keepsake, and tears began to roll down. "I don't care. It's just a necklace. Why don't you just have Aiden buy you a new one?" Charlie uttered. "It's not about getting a new one." I was upset. I realized she wouldn't understand my feelings and decided not to discuss it further. However, incidents kept occurring where money from my wallet and other items around the house would go missing. Though I kept a watchful eye on my mother-in-law's actions, I never saw her take anything. Confused and emotionally exhausted, I confided in Ingrid, who asserted that my mother-in-law was definitely the prime suspect. No one else had access to our home. The realization saddened me, yet there was no concrete evidence of her theft, and I couldn't understand why she would do such a thing, especially since she continued to live a lavish lifestyle from the inheritance left by my father-in-law. Seeing my distress, Ingrid made a suggestion. Little did I know at the time where this would lead. About 2 weeks after speaking to Ingrid, Aiden and his brother were going on a business trip to meet with a company from another state. Knowing about their trip, Ingrid thought it might be a good time for us to take a break and invited me on a short vacation. Having been mentally and physically drained recently, the idea of a getaway was appealing. I packed early and placed my travel bag near the entrance, waiting for departure time. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Wondering who it could be, I checked the video feed to find my mother-in-law. Not only her, but she was accompanied by several others. "Hello, Miranda. I brought some friends. Please open up." Opening the front door, I found my mother-in-law and about 7 of her friends, all carrying large bags. Were they going somewhere? "We're staying here tonight. Make us comfortable." My mother-in-law shocked me. "Excuse me?" I asked. "Didn't I mention it?" she continued. "We're seeing a play nearby tonight, and since it ends late, we're all staying here." This was news to me. My departure time was approaching. "Oh, did I inconvenience you?" Charlie said. "Aiden said you were ready for us." I hadn't heard anything of the sort, and it seemed she was making up the story as she went along. Growing increasingly frustrated, I replied firmly, "I'm sorry, but I wasn't informed of this and I have plans." To my reply, she looked taken aback. "But you'll be back soon, right? We'll drop our bags and head out for a bit. Just prepare dinner and sleeping arrangements for us." Ignoring the fact that I had plans, she knew I couldn't let this slide. I can't. I'm going on a trip. A trip with whom? With Ingrid. Oh, just with Ingrid? You can go anytime. We've come all this way just for today. How long are you going to make us wait? Just then, I noticed something glinting around her neck. Wait, that necklace you're wearing. To my astonishment, it was the same necklace that was a keepsake from my mother. Charlie, where did you get that necklace? Why, it's just one of my collections. Is there a problem? She answered with a smug look. That can't be right. That necklace is a limited edition, and not many are out there. While I was exchanging words with her, Ingrid arrived. I was wondering why you didn't show up at our meeting place and didn't contact me. So this is what was happening? Ingrid said. I'm sorry I couldn't get in touch, I replied. Ingrid, seeing my expression, instantly knew something was amiss. What happened? I got upset because the necklace she's wearing is the same one as my mother's that went missing recently. Oh, the one you kept in that box? Ingrid purposefully said it loud enough for everyone to hear. Suddenly, my mother-in-law, trying to keep it from her friends, whispered to us, Can you stop this? It's embarrassing. Do you want to accuse me of theft? Yes, honestly, I find it suspicious, Ingrid answered firmly. Do you have any proof that I stole it? It's embarrassing having such unreasonable daughters-in-law. Please don't make a scene in front of my friends. With that, she turned back to her friends with a smile. Well, let's go inside, everyone. As she attempted to move inside, I remembered something. The initials. My mother's initials are engraved on the necklace, I uttered. Charlie, can I have a look, please? Ingrid quickly went behind her to check. Enough of this. What are your mother's initials? It's Mavis Flores, so the initials should be MF. There it is. The initials MF. The friends looked horrified and stepped back. Stop this. I didn't come here for this. Let's go, everyone. Charlie panicked. The friends, sensing the tension, quickly muttered, We're not involved, and headed towards the subway. Wait, if it's some mistake? As she tried to follow her friends, someone stopped her. What are you doing here? Weren't you supposed to be on a business trip? Charlie uttered. Standing there was Aiden. Turns out, Aiden's business trip was actually scheduled for the next day. To investigate his mother's actions, he had purposely given her a false date. Ingrid had informed Aiden about the missing items from the house after I had confided in her. Initially, Aiden was skeptical, but upon visiting his childhood home and noticing several items identical to ours, he began to suspect theft. However, without evidence, he knew she could easily deny it, leading him to come up with today's plan. Inviting friends for an overnight stay was unexpected, but he was certain his mother would visit if she believed he wasn't home. What do you want at our house? He asked. I was just leaving, Charlie replied. As she tried to leave, Aiden stopped her. Give it back. That necklace isn't yours. That necklace is a keepsake from Miranda's parents. Why do you have it, Mom? It's not what you think. I found it in my purse. Miranda must have set me up. Seemingly fearing the disadvantageous position she was in, my mother-in-law suddenly shifted the blame to me. Do you really think such a lie would work? There's no way Miranda would do something like that. First, give the necklace back to Miranda. We'll talk after that. Reluctantly, she took off the necklace, threw it on the ground, and tried to run away. Hey, wait! The three of us tried to chase her, but stopped shortly. We no longer needed to. 10 police officers stood in front of her. I, too, was unsure about what was happening, just staring at the bizarre scene. Then one of the officers said, We received a report from a local resident. They said someone who seemed to be causing a ruckus here was often seen entering this house when the owners were away. They asked us to come quickly. What are you talking about? I'm the mother of the son living here. Getting the police involved in a family matter? My mother-in-law retorted, looking annoyed. Wait, what do you mean she entered when we weren't home? I never did such a thing. I always come when you're home. Did the informant say anything else? When we asked the police, they mentioned that someone had witnessed my mother-in-law sneaking into our backyard, likely using a spare key to get inside. Indeed, we had a spare key hidden beneath a plant pot in the backyard. This realization gave us chills and also explained the missing items. Aiden had considered this possibility and was planning to observe her actions while we were out today, but he never expected to find out the truth in this manner. Mom, why were you coming into our house when we weren't home? He asked. It's all lies. You're going to believe some unknown person's story? She snorted. But you did have my precious necklace, didn't you? I said. I told you I found it in my purse, she continued. One of the officers stepped in, saying calmly, Let's talk about this at the station. But I didn't do anything. Mom, stop this. I can't understand why you did this. Upon hearing her son's words, my mother-in-law collapsed to the ground. But just when it seemed like she had nowhere left to run and was feeling defeated, she suddenly flew into a rage. Because after your father passed away, I felt so lonely, and seeing her always so cheerful, I couldn't stand it. I felt better seeing her troubled. I wanted her to feel the pain I felt. Aiden was red-faced hearing his mother's irrational reasoning. Mom, wait, let me speak, he demanded, his voice tight with frustration. Feeling the need to confront the issue head-on, I stepped in front of an increasingly angry Aiden. I understand where you're coming from, Charlie, I began, trying to keep my voice calm. Perhaps I've been neglectful by always brushing off our talks. However, stealing is a different matter entirely. Did you want to upset me? Don't be ridiculous, Charlie snapped, her eyes flashing with defiance. Did you find joy in pushing someone to their limits with such a twisted and dirty scheme? Did that fill the void of your loneliness? I pressed, hoping to reach her. Shut up! What would you know about me? She retorted angrily. If you're feeling down, then tell us. We can't read minds, I said, trying to keep my tone gentle but firm. Don't make fun of me. Why would I tell you anything, you worthless daughter-in-law? She sneered. Mom, Miranda's right, Aiden interjected, stepping forward. We want to help you, but you can't keep lashing out like this. Seeing the situation wasn't progressing, the police intervened, suggesting they move to the station. Are you really going to take me in? I can't believe this, Charlie protested, her voice rising in panic. Despite her resistance, given the eyewitness accounts of the unlawful entry and the suspicion of theft from possessing my belongings, the police decided to question my mother-in-law, and so she was promptly arrested on charges of unlawful entry and theft. She wasn't convinced, continuously protesting, Get me a lawyer. I'm innocent, and I can't eat this garbage. However, when her father visited her during visitation, he exploded in anger, telling her to deeply reflect on her actions. Charlie, you need to think about what you've done, he said sternly. This behavior is unacceptable. To that, her attitude completely changed as she cried and apologized. Considering her typically carefree behavior, he seemed to be the only authority she wouldn't defy. He further told her that unless she sincerely reflected on her actions, she shouldn't think of having a home to return to. Reluctantly, she seemed to accept the reality. Perhaps losing her husband had left my mother-in-law in search of her place. Were her fancy clothes and jewelry merely armor to keep herself strong? I even began to wonder if her different attitudes towards me and my sister-in-law were just attempts to mask her vulnerabilities. However, her excessive desires and inability to control them are a separate issue. Making wrong judgments led to this unfortunate incident. I was surprised to see the event escalate to this magnitude, but realizing that she had been using the spare key to enter our house without our knowledge genuinely terrified me. Later, I found out that the couple living diagonally across from us had reported her. The wife, who works from home, had noticed my mother-in-law entering our yard suspiciously multiple times and found it odd. I am nothing but grateful for their brave actions. Since then, we've been leading a peaceful life. Just to be safe, we changed our locks and stopped hiding a spare key in the yard. Aiden severed ties with his mother and made her promise not to contact us ever again. If she attempted to, he warned of legal action. After her release, she returned to her rural childhood home and is reportedly leading a humble life, a stark contrast to her past lavish lifestyle. Being watched by her father, she helps around the house from early morning. I truly hope she reevaluates her past excessive actions. Meanwhile, my own father has moved in with us in case my mother-in-law decides to pay another unexpected visit. He's here to ensure my safety, but there's another reason he's with us. I'm currently expecting our first child, anticipating the birth of his grandchild. My kind father and the support of Aiden make me want to be a mother who embodies both tenderness and strength. While money and possessions can provide a sense of fulfillment, it's the presence of loved ones that truly fills the heart. We're discussing living arrangements, and surrounded by those dear to us, we aim to protect our peaceful daily lives. My name is Paisley Hernandez. At 34, I've carved a path for myself as a marketing executive, a role I take pride in. My life, outwardly perfect, is married to a complexity named Nathan. Lately, his actions have been painting my days with shades of doubt. It started subtly. Nathan, usually punctual, began coming home late under the guise of work pressures, but the corporate world, my world, whispers truths that aren't always spoken. His excuses seemed more like fiction each day. Then came the clandestine phone calls, his voice a hushed melody of secrecy. When confronted, he'd brush it off with a faint look of confusion, an act not worthy of any stage. My suspicions deepened when I overheard fragments of a phone call. Susan, the plan. Paisley won't know. Susan, Nathan's sister, whom I'd always found unsettling with her sharp gaze and sharper tongue. Were they plotting something against me? My heart raced with a mix of fear and anger, but fear never suited me. I chose the armor of preparation over the shroud of ignorance. Yet in front of Nathan, I donned a mask of obliviousness. What do you mean? I'd ask with feigned innocence when he mentioned a trip I knew nothing about. Inside, I was piecing together a puzzle whose picture I dreaded to see. Our story wasn't always shadowed like this. We met at a company mixer, his charm as evident as my ambition. Our relationship, a whirlwind of dinners and moonlit walks, soon led to sharing a home. But as my career soared, his stagnated, and with it, his demeanor changed. The man I fell for seemed like a distant memory, replaced by a stranger with the same face. I knew confrontation wouldn't peel away the layers of deceit, not yet. Instead, I observed, waited, and planned. Little did Nathan know, I was no damsel in distress, but a queen strategizing her next move in a game he thought he controlled. In my moments of solitude, I often wondered how love could morph into a battlefield of egos and secrets. But there was no time for such reflections. The chessboard was laid out, and it was my move. Nathan had once been a beacon of light in my life, but now he was the source of a gnawing unease that settled in my stomach like a lead weight. It wasn't always like this. When we first met, I was struck by his charisma and easy laugh. Our early days were filled with laughter and love. I remember him being genuinely impressed by my rapid rise in the corporate world. But as my career trajectory soared, his stalled. The laughter faded, replaced by a simmering resentment that he tried and failed to hide. His sister Susan was a different story altogether. From the first day I met her, I sensed a coldness in her eyes, a calculative mind behind her polite smiles. When Nathan and I announced our engagement, her congratulations were laced with a hint of disdain, as if she couldn't believe her brother chose someone like me. The turning point came one balmy evening, when Susan paid an unexpected visit. Her request was as audacious as it was unexpected. A loan of a significant sum, supposedly for some urgent need. The way she casually demanded $6,000 under the pretense of familial obligation set off alarms in my mind. I agreed, but not without my conditions, a legally binding promissory note. It seemed to irk her, the idea of being bound by legalities to her brother's wife. But her desperation was evident. She agreed, albeit begrudgingly. This encounter gave me a glimpse into the dynamics of Nathan and Susan's relationship, a peculiar mix of dependency and manipulation. It was then I realized that whatever game they were playing, it was one they were accustomed to, with rules they made up as they went along. The following weeks were a blur of late nights and early mornings as I threw myself into my work, seeking solace in the one place I felt in control. Meanwhile, Nathan's behavior grew increasingly erratic, his mood swinging wildly from sullen silence to flashes of anger. I was playing a dangerous game, but I was not one to back down. Nathan and Susan may have been plotting in the shadows, but I was no stranger to strategy. In the world of corporate marketing, foresight and planning were everything, and I was about to put those skills to use in a way I never imagined. Life, I had learned, was like a game of chess. Every move mattered, and sometimes you had to sacrifice a pawn to capture a queen. As I sat in my office, the city lights twinkling like distant stars, I realized the game I was unwittingly a part of was reaching a critical juncture. The unraveling began on a Thursday evening, the kind that promised tranquility but delivered turmoil. Nathan had grown increasingly distant, his presence in our home like a ghost. There, yet not quite. It was on this evening that I discovered the betrayal that turned my simmering suspicions into a roaring inferno. I had logged into our joint account to pay some bills, a mundane task that soon turned into a shocking revelation. There it was, in cold hard numbers, a withdrawal of $9,000, money that I had saved from my days as a single woman, earmarked for a future where dreams and reality aligned. The confrontation that followed was as bitter as it was revealing. Nathan, caught off guard, oscillated between defensiveness and guilt. His excuses were weak and his justifications even weaker. It was clear this wasn't an impulsive act, but a calculated move, encouraged no doubt by Susan. Sleep evaded me that night. The man I had shared my life with had become a stranger, his actions a clear declaration of war. And in war, as in love, all is fair. The next day, I made 2 calls. The first to a divorce attorney known for her ruthlessness and efficacy, the second to a private investigator, a necessary ally in the impending battle. If Nathan and Susan were plotting against me, I needed ammunition of my own. In the days that followed, my home felt like a battlefield, the air thick with unspoken words and veiled threats. Nathan's late-night whispers on the phone with Susan became more frequent, their plans, whatever they were, seemingly reaching fruition. But amidst this brewing storm, I found an unexpected ally. Beau, Susan's husband, called me out of the blue, his voice laced with equal parts confusion and frustration, mirroring my own feelings. "Is Susan there?" he asked, a simple question that opened the floodgates of shared grievances. He too had noticed changes in Susan, her secretive behavior and sudden needs for money. It wasn't long before we pieced together the puzzle. Our spouses were not just siblings, they were partners in deceit. The plan we hatched was born of desperation and determination. If Nathan and Susan wanted a game, we would give them one to remember. Beau and I, united by our shared betrayal, were about to turn the tables. The world of deceit that Nathan and Susan had woven was intricate, but in their arrogance they had overlooked one crucial element, the resilience of those they sought to manipulate. As I sat across from Beau in a quiet cafe, a plan began to take shape, one that would turn the hunters into the hunted. Beau, a quiet, unassuming man, had been enduring Susan's manipulative tactics for years. His story was a mirror to mine, a tale of love turning sour, trust giving way to betrayal. As we talked, an alliance formed, not just of circumstance, but of understanding. We realized that our spouses were planning a trip, a lavish affair funded by the money they siphoned from us. The thought of them reveling at our expense fueled our resolve. We needed to act, and our window of opportunity was narrowing. The plan was simple yet daring. We would let the trip proceed, but with a twist. Nathan and Susan would find their resources suddenly cut off, stranded far from their comfort zone. We anticipated their panic, their realization that they were not as untouchable as they believed. To set the trap, I switched Nathan's credit card with an expired gym membership card, a decoy he wouldn't suspect until it was too late. Beau ensured that their travel funds would be mysteriously frozen upon their arrival. As D-Day approached, I watched Nathan pack with feigned disinterest. He was brimming with excitement, a child oblivious to the looming storm. "You'll miss me?" he asked, a grin on his face. "Immensely," I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm. He was too blind to notice. The day they left, I felt a sense of liberation mixed with apprehension. Part of me wanted to confront Nathan, to unleash the storm of words I had held back, but the greater part knew that this silence was more potent than any words I could muster. Beau and I kept in touch, updating each other on any developments. As expected, the first sign of trouble came soon after their arrival. Nathan's frantic calls, filled with confusion and anger, were music to my ears. "The card's not working," he exclaimed, panic seeping through his bravado. I feigned ignorance, savoring the moment. "That's strange. Maybe you should call the bank," I suggested, my voice a mask of concern. As the days passed, their plight grew. Stranded without funds, Nathan and Susan's facade crumbled. They were exposed, vulnerable, and for the first time at our mercy. The satisfaction of watching Nathan and Susan flounder in their ill-conceived plot was tinged with a bittersweet realization. The end of my marriage, no matter how tainted it had become, was an irrevocable change to the life I had built. I received sporadic updates from Beau, who managed to keep a stoic front despite the chaos unraveling in his own life. Our plan had worked better than we had hoped. With their funds inaccessible and their credit cards declined, Nathan and Susan were stranded, forced to face the consequences of their actions. Their calls became more frequent and increasingly desperate. Nathan, once so sure of himself, was now reduced to a mix of pleading and threats. "Paisley, you need to send money. This isn't funny anymore," he demanded during one call. His voice, once sweet and loving, now held a venom that I had become all too familiar with. But I remained unmoved. "I'm sorry, Nathan, but I can't help you," I replied, my voice steady. His shock was palpable even through the phone. For the first time in our marriage, I was not bending to his will. Meanwhile, Susan's facade of the doting sister and devoted wife crumbled. Reports from Beau painted a picture of a woman unraveling at the seams, her manipulative nature exposed for all to see. As the week drew to a close, Nathan and Susan's plight reached its peak. With limited options, they were forced to rely on the kindness of their travel companions, a humbling experience for two people who had always looked down on others. The day they were due to return, I felt a mix of relief and apprehension. I knew this was not the end, but merely the beginning of a new chapter. As I waited for Nathan's return, I prepared myself for the confrontation that was inevitable. When Nathan finally walked through the door, his usual arrogance was gone, replaced by a quiet defeat. His eyes met mine, searching for a sign of the wife he once knew, but I was no longer that person. "Paisley, he began, his voice trailing off. I cut him off, my voice firm. "Save it, Nathan. I know everything." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the weight of unspoken truths and shattered illusions. In that moment I realized that this was not just a victory for me, but a liberation from a life that was no longer mine. The game was over, and I had emerged not just unscathed, but stronger. The aftermath of Nathan and Susan's ill-fated trip was a period of reckoning, both legally and emotionally. The house that once echoed with laughter and love, now reverberated with the cold, hard truths of betrayal and deceit. Nathan's return marked the beginning of a series of confrontations, each more heated than the last. Our conversations, once filled with dreams and plans for the future, were now battlegrounds where words were wielded like swords. But amidst the anger and the hurt, there was an undercurrent of something else: freedom. My meetings with the divorce attorney became a regular part of my routine. Each session was a step towards liberating myself from the shackles of a marriage that had turned toxic. The attorney, a woman of sharp intellect and fierce determination, was my guide through the labyrinth of legal proceedings. Meanwhile, Beau filed for divorce from Susan. The alliance that had started as a means to an end had blossomed into a friendship grounded in mutual respect and understanding. We often found solace in each other's company, sharing our experiences and healing from our collective wounds. As the divorce proceedings progressed, the true extent of Nathan and Susan's duplicity came to light. Financial statements, bank records, and the private investigators' reports painted a damning picture of their betrayal. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but one that fortified my resolve to see this through. The day the divorce was finalized was a day of mixed emotions, relief, sadness, but above all, a sense of closure. I had walked into the courtroom as Nathan's wife, but I walked out as Paisley Hernandez, independent, strong, and free. In the weeks that followed, I threw myself into my work, channeling my energies into the one place where I felt in control. My efforts did not go unnoticed, and soon I was offered a promotion, a recognition of my dedication and hard work. Life after divorce was a journey of rediscovery. The world, once viewed through the lens of my marriage to Nathan, now opened up in a myriad of possibilities. I found joy in the small things: a quiet evening with a book, a coffee with Beau, who had become a pillar of support and a dear friend. As I stood on my balcony one evening, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple, I realized that this was not the end of my story, but the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where I was the author, and the possibilities were endless. The end of my marriage to Nathan had closed a tumultuous chapter in my life, but as with all endings, it heralded a new beginning. The world, once narrowed by the confines of a strained relationship, now lay open before me, ripe with possibilities. In the months following the divorce, I found myself evolving, shedding the remnants of a past that no longer defined me. My promotion at work was not just a career milestone, it was a testament to my resilience, a badge of honor earned through adversity. Beau, too, had embarked on a journey of self-discovery. Our shared experiences had forged a bond that was both unexpected and profound. Our coffee meetings became a regular part of our lives, a space where we could share, laugh, and heal. There was a comfort in his presence, a sense of understanding that went beyond words. As we navigated our new realities, our friendship deepened, blossoming into something more. It was a gradual shift, a natural progression from shared pain to shared joy. Beau was no longer just a friend. He had become a confidant, a partner in every sense of the word. One evening, as we walked along the riverside, the city lights reflecting off the water like stars in a night sky, Beau stopped and turned to me. "Paisley," he said, his voice tinged with a mixture of nervousness and sincerity, "these past months with you have been a journey I never expected, but one I'm grateful for every day. You've become so much more than a friend to me." His words echoed my own feelings, a sentiment I had kept nestled in my heart. "Beau," I replied, my hand finding his, "I feel the same. You've been my rock, my laughter in the darkness. I can't imagine my life without you in it." As we stood there hand in hand, the world around us faded into a blur. In that moment, there was only us, two souls that had found solace and strength in each other. Life, I had come to realize, was an unpredictable journey, a tapestry woven with threads of joy, pain, love, and loss. But it was these very threads that gave it depth and color, turning it into a masterpiece of experiences. As I looked ahead, I saw a future filled with hope and possibilities, a future where I was no longer defined by my past, but by the choices I made and the person I had become. The road ahead was uncharted, but I was ready to embrace whatever it held, with Beau by my side. Several years ago, I married Anthony, and with him came a new family member, my sister-in-law, Sadie. Initially, I hoped we could get along, but it quickly became apparent that Sadie didn't share my sentiment. She often looked down on me, valuing my presence only for the money she thought she could extract from me. The most glaring revelation of Sadie's true intentions came during a phone conversation one day. She said coldly, "If you're looking for your bank book, you better give up because I have it." I asked, "Why would you say that?" She replied, "Isn't your wealth essentially mine? So even if I spend it all, it shouldn't be a problem." Frustrated, I retorted, "My assets are mine. They're not yours." She laughed it off. "Do you really believe that? That's amusing." From that moment, I knew reconciliation with Sadie was impossible, and I started thinking of ways to counter her. When I was ready to execute my plan, Sadie confidently declared, "Once you married into our family, isn't it natural to think everything you have now belongs to the family?" I was dumbfounded and could only mumble, "That's not how it actually works." I decided to buy a new car using the bank book balance. Withdrawing a large amount at once would raise suspicions, so I carefully withdrew $4,000 multiple times using an ATM. "There's no balance left in the bank book, so forget about the money," Sadie laughed loudly. Her smile was filled with pride, as if she was declaring her victory. Seeing her in such a good mood, I decided it was the perfect moment to counterattack. "Then I'll give up on the bank book and the money inside it, as you say." "What are you talking about?" she snapped. "You said earlier to forget about the bank book and the money, didn't you?" I said. "I did say that, but you're the one who needs to give up," she uttered. "Could you tell me why?" I inquired. "Isn't it obvious? The bank book is in your name," she continued. "Did you carefully check the name on the bank book?" I asked. "Of course, it was stored on a shelf in your house, so it must be in your name." Sadie's voice was filled with irritation. However, I didn't flinch. Her slip of the tongue had given me a significant advantage. "Sister-in-law, it seems you have a little misunderstanding." After that preface, I began to explain the whole story to Sadie slowly and carefully. "My name is Layla. The story goes back to when I decided to marry Anthony. His family runs a metal processing business. My father-in-law is the president, and my mother-in-law handles all the office tasks. Anthony works hard as an employee in the company. In fact, many talented people, including Anthony, work there, making it a fairly large-scale business. I truly wanted to support the company, but I noticed my mother-in-law looking exhausted. I began to wonder if administrative work usually involved such a burden, so I decided to ask her directly about her health and the situation at work. Mother, is something bothering you? Thank you for your concern. Actually, 2 office staff members resigned recently, and as a result, I've been handling most of the tasks by myself. What? That must be tough. Especially managing everything on your own, I exclaimed in surprise. From my mother-in-law's detailed account, I learned that the 2 office workers had left the company after getting married. Additionally, they were having trouble recruiting new clerks and didn't have a clear hiring policy. So I made a suggestion. I have experience in administrative work. If there's any way I can help, I'd be more than happy to support. My mother-in-law's expression brightened. That would be very helpful. Of course, we intend to compensate you appropriately, so thank you in advance. Triggered by this conversation, I became actively involved in my father-in-law's company. My administrative experience was quickly put to use, and my father-in-law greatly appreciated my support. Anthony always looked out for me, concerned about whether I felt stressed balancing household chores with work. You only need to help until a new clerk is hired. I don't want you to overwork yourself, he said. Thank you, Anthony, but I communicate well with your mother, and compared to my previous workplace, the environment and atmosphere here are much better, so I don't intend to quit anytime soon. Anthony respected my decision. One day, out of the blue, my mother-in-law exclaimed, "Oh, I completely forgot to go to the post office. That's concerning? Would you like me to go for you?" With my kind offer, a smile spread across her face. "No need, Layla. I was planning to do some shopping too, so I'll go." Leaving those words behind, she hurriedly left. During the short time she was out, it seemed almost planned when my sister-in-law appeared in the office. "Long time no see, Layla." Sadie's voice was warm. "Sadie, did you have something to discuss?" I asked. "Actually, I was just passing by and thought I'd drop in." Sadie smiled sweetly. "I'd heard rumors that she's currently working in a restaurant since she doesn't have a full-time job, but I didn't know the details about her current job situation or how her life has been." As I was contemplating whether to ask Sadie about her situation, she suddenly turned to me. "Layla, I'm curious. Are you getting paid for working here?" "Yes, the pay isn't much for the administrative work I do, but I am compensated," I replied. I intended to help without any payment considering the nature of the work and my role in the family. However, my father-in-law suggested that hiring me officially and paying a salary would be smoother for tax and internal management reasons, so I chose that route. The salary I receive is just the minimum for a newbie in admin roles, so it's not much. I wasn't sure how much Sadie knew about my salary situation, but from her attitude, it seemed she was expecting something. "In that case, could you share a bit with me?" Taken aback, I reflexively asked, "What do you mean by a share? Are you asking to borrow money?" "That's not what I meant. I want you to give me part of that salary," she said. "Part of the salary?" I exclaimed. "Don't make me repeat myself. Just give it to me now." Sadie's expression suddenly changed and she approached me. She then noticed a small safe on the table. "It's in there, isn't it?" Saying that, she reached out for the safe. In a panic, I blurted out, "Wait, that contains important funds for the company." "Company funds? This is a company run by our father, right? If so, that money belongs to him, so there shouldn't be a problem with me borrowing a bit of it," she argued back. That wasn't the issue. I tried desperately to stop her, but Sadie's determination was unyielding. In the end, she forced open the safe and took out several bills. "I'll be taking this," she said. "Give it back." How am I supposed to explain this to everyone? I wondered. "That's your problem, and I'm sure you'll figure it out," she uttered. "Goodbye." Whistling, Sadie made her exit. I stood there in shock, watching her leave the office. While I couldn't determine the exact amount, I didn't think she took that much. "Right, I need to check what's left," I said out loud. As I referenced the ledger, I checked the contents of the safe. "I'm short $130. Sadie took $2.50 bills and $3.10 bills. My heart raced as I quickly pulled out my wallet to check inside. However, there were only a few $5 bills. This isn't nearly enough. What should I do? Frustrated and desperate to remedy the situation, I felt lost. I considered telling my mother-in-law the truth, but the potential backlash and resentment from Sadie made me hesitate. Fear of being targeted for revenge held me back from confessing everything with no solutions in sight. "I'm back, Layla. You seem down. Are you feeling okay?" my mother-in-law said when she came back from the post office. "Actually, there's something I need to tell you," I began, steeling myself to reveal what had transpired. "You don't need to apologize. Sadie has caused trouble multiple times before. It's been difficult handling her. I'm sorry she put you through this." "About the money Sadie took, if it could be deducted from my salary, I'd appreciate it," I said. "Don't worry about it. I'll handle it as her mother, but I have a small request for you." The request was that when Sadie comes to the office next time to record her voice, the method was simple. Use a smartphone or a digital recorder to ensure the atmosphere and conversation of the place are recorded. "But why is such a recording necessary?" I asked. "Sadie is an adult now. I believe she needs proper sanctions for what she did," mother-in-law answered. "Indeed, that's true, but—" I started, but my mother-in-law continued. "To ensure she doesn't make wrong moves in the future, we need to show her the significance and impact of her actions." After the conversation, I decided to always wear an IC recorder. A week later, while the mother-in-law was out, Sadie appeared in the office again. "Hey, how are you doing, Layla?" Why are you here again?" I nervously and discreetly operated the IC recorder to start recording. "Actually, I'm a bit strapped for cash right now, so I thought I'd borrow some from you," Sadie said. "I'm definitely not lending you money," I replied. "Why? You lent it before, didn't you?" she asked. "That was you taking it without permission," I objected. "But you managed to cover for it later, didn't you?" she continued. I couldn't say that I had informed my mother-in-law about what happened. If I were to explain in detail, Sadie would surely leave immediately. In that case, it would be impossible to collect the evidence requested by my mother-in-law. I pondered my response carefully, choosing my words. "You managed to overcome the situation, right? Can you lend me some money today?" Without stopping to press me, Sadie said, "That's not possible," I uttered. "You married this family, didn't you? Can you, as a daughter-in-law, go against the wishes of your in-laws?" she asked. Her irrational argument surprised me. "Well, enough with the excuses. Just hand over the key to the safe." Sadie angrily slammed the desk. After the resounding noise, I heard my mother-in-law's footsteps from outside. "What are you doing, Sadie?" Sadie's eyes widened in shock. "Oh, Mom, you haven't found a proper job, and on top of that, you're asking for money from your sister-in-law. Aren't you even a bit ashamed of your actions?" Well, Sadie stammered. "What exactly are you thinking, Sadie?" mother-in-law uttered. "Quit bugging me. I may not have a regular job, but I'm working part-time and supporting myself just fine," Sadie said. "At your age, still relying on part-time jobs for a living? Aren't you ashamed? Your friends have built careers, married and started families, and you're still—" Mother-in-law didn't finish her sentence. "It's my life, and I make my own choices. Besides, I have a decent partner for marriage." Sadie became agitated and stormed out of the room. After Sadie left, I breathed a sigh of relief. "Mother-in-law, I'm truly grateful. Don't worry. Now that she knows all about it, she must be feeling some regret," mother-in-law reassured me with a smile. However, my heart was still filled with anxiety. I was concerned that Sadie might return with more demands. One day, when I visited my mother-in-law's house, my mother-in-law showed me a piece of paper. Actually, I received an invitation to Sadie's wedding recently. Without a doubt, it was a wedding invitation. The groom was listed as a man named Angel. I didn't recognize the name, but my mother-in-law seemed to know him and had a somewhat worried expression. Actually, Angel is the son of the factory manager. "Huh, he's the factory manager's son? That's surprising," I marveled. The factory manager had been someone my father-in-law had worked closely with for a long time and highly respected. "Is the factory manager discussing anything specific about his son's marriage?" I asked. "Well, the thing is, the factory manager seemed to have no idea about the marriage, and he was genuinely surprised when we told him," mother-in-law replied. "I see," I uttered, But since it's already happened, we think it's best to accept it with a congratulatory spirit. There's no point in opposing it now. Mother-in-law's expression seemed to have already accepted everything. After the wedding, my sister-in-law proudly told my mother-in-law, "See, I did have a worthy fiancé." "Congratulations, Sadie," mother-in-law smiled. "Are you relieved now? More importantly, what are your plans for your new life together? What's your plan for the future? Did you decide on a new place to live yet?" When mother-in-law asked this with a serious expression, my sister-in-law seemed to be at a loss for words. "That's something we'll think about in the future." I thought as much. For now, you should start by living in our apartment. We're planning to move to a new place, so we'll let you have this house. It's our final support for you. Find part-time jobs if you need to, and make a living on your own, she said. "All right, I understand." Sadie made a displeased look on her face. I was surprised by her attitude considering she should be grateful for the house she received. Most of all, I felt sorry for my mother-in-law, who seemed pitiful and hurt. My husband Anthony seemed to feel the same way, and he quickly made a suggestion to my mother-in-law. "If that's the case, why don't you come live with us?" "It's okay. Actually, I've already discussed and decided on our new residence with your father," mother-in-law replied. "Are you sure that's fine?" Anthony asked. "Well, just for the time until we move into the new house. Can we leave some of our belongings at your place?" mother-in-law said. "Of course that's fine," Anthony replied. I felt relieved by his response. I had hoped that once she got married, my sister-in-law would lead a peaceful life. I optimistically believed that we would live in harmony, but issues arose within just a week after she moved into her new house. The morning after my sister-in-law and her husband moved in, while we were getting ready for work, we received a sudden call from my mother-in-law. "Mother-in-law, why are you calling so early? Is something wrong?" "Layla, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to check something. Is Sadie over there with you?" According to my mother-in-law, she and my father-in-law had plans to stay in a hotel for a few days, taking a short break from their house. During this time, my sister-in-law and her husband were supposed to start moving into the in-laws' house, and the furniture and belongings that were there were temporarily moved to our house. My mother-in-law was deeply concerned about whether her daughter's new life was on track, so she decided to visit their house that morning to see for herself. However, when she did, she couldn't find any sign of her daughter or her husband. Since they had helped move some belongings from the in-laws' house to ours the previous day, she thought they might be staying with us. "No, they did come back home," I replied. "Then I wonder where they could have gone," mother-in-law asked. "Maybe they went on their honeymoon?" I suggested. "That's a possibility. If you find out anything, please let me know." After saying that, she hung up. Later, I briefed my husband about the situation, but he had no specific information either. I felt it wasn't necessary for me to be involved any further, so I decided to just wait quietly for my sister-in-law to get in touch. However, as the days went by, the lack of contact started to become concerning. My mother-in-law seriously began to consider filing a missing person report with the police. In the middle of discussing this decision in our living room, she paused her train of thought and calmly said, "I'll go get the bank book for a moment." "What for?" I asked. "I want to withdraw some money just in case. If we do end up having to search for them, there might be some expenses involved." She spoke with a worried tone. I understood her forward thinking and decided to wait silently in the room. Suddenly, from the next room, "What? I can't find the bank book," I heard her shocked voice. Responding to the voice, my husband Anthony and I hurriedly went to the adjacent room. Inside, my mother-in-law looked flustered in front of a shelf. Checking the contents of the shelf, it was empty. "Did you keep your bank book here, ma'am?" I asked to confirm, and my mother-in-law nodded rapidly in a state of confusion. "Isn't this the shelf we moved last time?" my husband asked. Reflecting on the events, the move from her house had taken place in 2 stages. The first was the day after my sister-in-law's wedding, and the second just a few days later, the day before she disappeared. Despite the short time, the 2-stage move was mainly due to work-related reasons. The shelf in question was from the first move. However, neither my husband nor I recalled interacting with that shelf. Neither of us touched or checked that shelf. "Are you sure you kept it here?" Anthony's doubt irritated her, and they gradually began to argue as I stood confused, watching them. Suddenly my smartphone rang. The unexpected call in this tense situation startled me. Reluctantly picking up the phone, I heard, "What's going on? You sound upset." It was my sister-in-law. Hearing her voice, I couldn't hide my surprise. Raising one hand to interrupt the argument between my mother-in-law and husband, I said, "Sis, is that really you?" Both Anthony and my mother-in-law noticed and stopped arguing, turning to face me with their eyes locked onto me. They were at a loss for words. Turning to the phone again, I asked, "It is really you, right?" My sister-in-law's answer was short and seemed annoyed. "If it's not me, who do you think it is? Where are you? We've been genuinely worried about you." However, the sister-in-law casually brushed off the question. "It doesn't matter where I am right now. There's something I want to ask." From the conversation, it became clear that the sister-in-law had taken the bank book and apparently bought a car with the money inside. That money was originally mine. She even declared that outright. Outraged by her self-centered remarks, I recounted to her the entire commotion that had occurred. "Right now, Mom's bank book is missing and it's causing a lot of trouble," I uttered. "What? Mom's bank book is missing?" Sadie seemed genuinely shocked by this sudden piece of news. "Whose name is on that bank book you have? Could it be under my name?" I asked. Just wait a moment." From the other side of the call, the sound of rummaging through belongings could be heard. She probably mistakenly took my bank book thinking it was the mother-in-law's. However, the mother-in-law hadn't made any significant expenses recently and hadn't noticed it missing. More than a week had already passed since Sadie had the bank book. It's likely that the money inside was already withdrawn. After a while, a flustered voice came from the other end. "Wait, is this Mom's bank book?" "I knew it," I muttered. My smartphone was suddenly snatched from my hand. Looking up, the angered face of the mother-in-law held my phone firmly. "Sadie, I've heard everything." "What? Mom, why?" Sadie responded. "I was worried about you, then I got a call from you," mother-in-law said. "But how did you hear my conversation?" Sadie continued. "Because Layla had her phone on speaker," mother-in-law uttered. "I had the phone on speaker to let my husband and mother-in-law know about Sadie's actions. As a result, they had heard everything, including the fact that Sadie had used my bank book to buy a car." "What on earth were you thinking? How irresponsible!" Her voice echoed throughout the room. Apologizing with a remorseful voice, Sadie said, "I'm so sorry." "Using the company funds without permission and taking someone's bank book. What a mess you've made," mother-in-law said. "Please forgive me, I'll be careful from now on." "It's too late for that. Come home right now and explain," mother-in-law continued. "Yes, I understand," Sadie replied. Along with Sadie's shocked voice, a loud thud could be heard from the background. "Hey Sadie, are you okay?" the mother-in-law asked, but there was no response from Sadie. After a few seconds, Sadie's frantic voice reached us again. "Help me, I'm at the convenience store parking lot." Then the call abruptly ended. It was easy to infer the situation from that brief conversation. While being engrossed in the call, Sadie might have mistaken the gas for the brake. It seemed she had driven the car into the convenience store. Soon after, the police reported that Sadie's car had crashed into the store. Both Sadie and her husband were in the car. Fortunately, neither of them was seriously injured, but the aftermath was problematic. It became clear that my sister-in-law Sadie did not have car insurance, leading to the situation where all the repair costs would have to be paid out of pocket. The in-laws were extremely angry, but to contain the situation, they went to fetch Sadie immediately. Witnessing this, Sadie's husband's parents couldn't hide their anger either, especially her husband's father, who was the manager of a factory. He hurled biting words at Sadie. "Since you married into this family, do you think everything should just be provided for you?" Those words were the same words Sadie had said to me. Just telling my mother-in-law the story was not the end of my revenge. I had the manager, Sadie's father-in-law, listen to a recording of it as well. Since these were her own words, there was no room for Sadie to deny them. Subsequently, the manager had even harsher words and gave an order to Sadie and her husband. "You two have no money, so you will work diligently under my command and give me all the earnings." After these events, Sadie and her husband began working at the factory owned by my father-in-law, under the strict supervision of the manager. They had no other choice, and it seemed best for their financial situation. After that, My in-laws returned to their family home, closely monitoring the daily lives of Sadie and her husband. By day, they worked at the factory, and after work, they lived under the watchful eyes of the in-laws. Feeling the pressure from both ends, when Sadie ran into me at the factory, she came to me crying, seeking help. "I'll do anything. Please forgive me." "Then I want you to work sincerely and pay back the money you took from us." I had never imagined seeing Sadie in such a desperate state, breaking down in front of me. The sight of her at that moment spoke volumes about her mental exhaustion. It's a sight that will probably remain etched in my memory forever. On one hand, I thought it serves you right, but witnessing her pitiable state, I couldn't help but feel a hint of sympathy. However, since this was the result of her actions, there was nothing that could change it. Changing the topic, there was a significant change in my life shortly thereafter. I decided to resign from my administrative position. I had heard that the office was hiring new staff, and I found out that I was pregnant. I want to focus on a new life with my baby and ensure I get enough rest.